Back in high school, my friends and I, 18 male at the time, would go to a sports oval after dark and smoke and drink alcohol, etc. Usual loser teenager stuff. One night, I hit the bottle a little too hard and ended up spending the night passed out at the oval. I woke up still a bit drunk and realized someone had taken my glasses away from me so I wouldn't break them during my drunken antics. That was kind of them, but now I had to work out how to get home without my glasses. This was the era before smartphone turn-by-turn navigation for the youngins. Thankfully, when I started walking, I saw my good friend Hannah was walking just ahead of me, identified by her long brown hair. Hannah and I lived very close to one another, and we had been drinking together the night before. So I start blindly following Hannah as a way of getting home. And half an hour later, Hannah suddenly sprints down the driveway of a random house that isn't hers. I'm perplexed, but a bit more sober now, and I'm able to find my way home unassisted. Only later do I realize that Hannah was not Hannah, and just some random girl with long brown hair. So from her point of view, she was innocently walking in the early morning. Then some drunk 18-year-old wakes up and proceeds to follow her for half an hour in total silence, copying her every move. From her point of view, it was clear that I was following her. I later went back to the driveway she sprinted down to apologize, only to find that she didn't live there, so she must have just run down a random person's driveway to get away from me. I still feel bad almost 10 years later. I'm a super aware person. Always taught to keep my head on a swivel, and thank God for that. My son, at 2 years old, and I went to this local bar and grill where I used to work to have lunch and visit my friend who was working there. My son and I were just playing with his Hot Wheels and waiting for our food. This gentleman came up and started staring at me and my son and didn't say anything. I'm used to people coming up and admiring my son. He's adorable. But this was weird. I asked if I could help him, but he didn't speak great English. But I managed to decipher what he was saying. He asked if I was married, and I said yes. Plus I have a kid with me, and I'm noticeably pregnant. He then tells me he's divorced, and it's been hard, and then tells me I'm beautiful like 5 times. I say thanks, and our food finally comes out. He's still standing at our table while we prepare to eat. I just look at him, and he finally walks off. My son and I eat and play and say bye to my friends. As I'm walking out the door, I notice him following us very slowly. I get to my car and I try to get my son in his car seat as quick as I can, while I'm watching him get closer and closer. I finally get him buckled in, and then bam, he's standing right behind me. He held out his hand and tried to hand me $1, and I asked, "What is this?" And he said his phone number. I then told him I didn't want it and retold him I was married and I am never going to call him. He kept insisting, so I took the $1 and threw it in the back seat and told him to leave. I get in my car and lock the doors, collect myself, and start to back out. As I'm going through the parking lot, I see him in his car waiting for me to leave so he can follow me. I jet out on the busy street, trying to lose him, but he kept up right behind me. Obviously, I don't want to drive home. My husband's out of town and I don't want this guy knowing where I live. So I start heading to my parents', where I had already called my dad and gave him a heads up to meet me outside with his gun. He's still riding my ass at this point, and we get to a roundabout. So I just kept going around, and so did he. More cars eventually started filling in the roundabout to where he wasn't directly behind me, and I pulled off to my parents' street. I looked behind me, and he had started following a car that looked similar to mine, but I finally had gotten him off my tail. I know this was a long post, but I really was scared. I kept thinking about if I wasn't so vigilant and aware of everything, that it could have ended up really bad. I lived in Vancouver for a couple years, and most of the time it was a great experience. One day I was waiting for the bus and was on the phone with my boyfriend. Suddenly a man looked at me and started maniacally laughing. I was used to being slightly harassed by homeless folks living where I did, and at first truly thought nothing of it. Then he booked it towards me, downtown Vancouver, on Granville Street. Other people were on their phones around me, and I heard one of them say, "Oh my God, that girl is getting chased by someone." But not one person stopped to help or intervene. Everyone just watched. He finally gave up after a few minutes, and multiple people approached me after it happened, asking if I was okay, and that they witnessed the whole thing. I know it's minor, and a lot less scary than most of the posts in here, but I have struggled to get over the fact that multiple people witnessed it and nobody stepped in. And I was just lucky I was fast enough. Years ago, I lived in a condo with my 2 dogs, Smokey and the Bandit, brother and sister from the same litter that I got as puppies. For reference, their mother was a Sheltie. Smokey's father was a German Shepherd and Bandit's was a Husky. They were both a good size with long, thick coats, which made them look a lot bigger than what they actually were. Personality-wise, they were both big babies who loved people, aka attention seekers, and would happily lick you to death given the chance. One night I got home late, like 2:30ish, and took them out for a run and a pee, something I had done many times. I lived in the back side of the condo on the ground level, and the backyard was a huge park-like setting divided by an intersecting pathways, kind of like a square with 4 quadrants surrounded by other condos and houses. The area right in front of my condo was a big field with a pathway about halfway through running parallel to the condo. To the left of that was an area around the same size, divided up between a large playground area and a forest area with a pathway running through it. I headed straight out of my condo and across the pathway that divided it into a big open field. I had noticed someone, a tall skinny man dressed all in black, whistling while walking along the path I had just crossed over. As I ran with the dogs, I noticed the whistling stopped, so I looked over my shoulder and saw the man had diverted off the path and was now walking in direct line towards me. I immediately thought, oh shit, this can't be good. Took a hard left and ran into the playground area. It was well lit, but there was also a huge man-made hill that I assume was leftover dirt from something that was built, that had become grass covered. I ran around the hill into the dark, where he wouldn't be able to see me. I stayed there for a minute to formulate my, oh my god, what the fuck plan. Luckily, I knew the area very well, having spent hours walking everywhere with the dogs. The playground was bordered on one side by the forest area, so I crept through the trees to where the path ran through, circling back towards my condo, keeping close to the shadowed area while hoping and praying that I had lost him, or he had lost interest. The forested area ends basically where the backyard of my condo begins. Still hidden, I looked around the open area and couldn't see anyone. I made a break for it, and I started running like hell. Up to this point, it was just like any other walk for my dogs, who had happily galloped along beside me the entire time, seemingly unaware of any danger. As I left the protection of the forest, I saw the fucker jump out of a nearby group of bushes. I had a good head start on him, but didn't know how fast the fucker was, so I just kept running and not looking back. What happened next still amazes me to this day. As I was running, the dogs, still at my side, Smokey the female, all of a sudden, stopped dead in her tracks, turned around, assumed the "don't fuck with my boy" stance, and started snarling and growling at the fucker, which stopped him dead in his tracks too. Bandit the male stuck right beside my side, like glue, until we got to my patio. I turned and looked back and almost laughed at the fucker. Smokey was still standing her ground in full-on guard dog mode, and he was standing there looking at her, hands up in surrender. I called Smokey to come, and she backed away slowly, barking and growling, until she decided it was good, and then turned around and ran back to me. I kept my eyes on the fucker the entire time. He never moved until the dogs and I went back inside, which we did as soon as Smokey got there. I immediately called 911, and within minutes, the entire back area was swarming with cops. The cop who interviewed me said there had been numerous reports of sexual assaults in our area, and they figured it was the same guy. Unfortunately, other than tall, skinny, and wearing all black, I had zero info on what he looked like. I don't know if they ever caught him or anything came about it. When everything was gone, I had a good long cuddle with my wonder dogs, complete with them licking away my tears. After the adrenaline and everything wore off, the gravity of what could have happened and how damn lucky I was finally hit me. For the record, I had done lots of modes of training with them, but never anything involved protection. What they did was 100% instinct that I didn't even know that they had in them.